solving interoperability friction, adoption of FHIR is one thing that we can all agree on. Is there anything in health that health tech innovators we should be doing?
Yeah, I think, there's like there's the standard, and then there's influencing and participation in the community and talking about use cases that help flesh out greater and greater and greater coverage of the standard. One thing that I think generally and this came up in the webinar we did recently too, is like, generally, I think, we have this lovely legislation that says like, you as a patient can take the power of your data and receive your healthcare information data via an app of your choice, as long as the app meets the, regulation or the certification of the standard. And I don't know that there's like, I think there are pockets of the industry working on this, but I just don't get that I just don't see broad like patient consent, patient education around the ability of FHIR. And the really interesting thing is like, the average consumer, most of the general population, is super well versed with apps. Like, we all use apps all day long, every day on our mobile devices. And so like, it's really interesting that we're like pivoting into this part of healthcare where we have these modern RESTful API interactions. We have this legislation that says people can pick an app of their choice, but we don't have like this driving force in the industry to like make sure the consumer is even more educated about their options and what they can do with the data once it's replicated to them. And so I think if there is a plea to be made to more of the larger scale development community, I think there's definitely those that build provider and clinician style apps, and like, yes, the patient is a part of that exchange, but their focus and their user, if you will, is clinicians. But I think for those folks that are focused on D2C apps or B2B2C apps, like, there's a little bit of a groundswell and maybe even some like, I don't know, lobbying or whatever that needs to take place so that we can increase an understanding of really honestly like intelligent, informed consumers, and have them understand how the standard is like benefiting them and their ability to make their data more liquid as they're trying to achieve care in a variety of different settings, telehealth, actual physical locations, so on and so forth. So that would be my ask, is like, let's not forget about the patient when we talk about like all the techs and specs.
Yeah, totally. I know during the webinar last month, that was one of kind of what I classify as non-technical challenges to FHIR adoption and kind of interoperability at large. I would ask, are there any other non-technical challenges that you think we need to tackle as an industry?
Yeah, I think that there are, like most highly regulated industries, there's always security concerns, right? Like, there's never been a broader surface area for malicious actors. And so I think getting some sort of like framework bodies, and I think you saw this recently, like AWS put out a high level, like, hey, this is what a security architecture standard review should kind of look like. And so I think that there's some areas from a non-technical perspective on like, how should we organize our security like reviews and analysis? How should we conduct our BAAs? Like, everyone gets into a different negotiation, and who's the sub and who's not. Like, I think there's some work we could do on I'll call it the procedural and like business side of the equation. And it's like, hey, we're all exchanging this data. There's a ubiquitous standard here. Like, let's see if we can tighten this up in a way that like makes the buying cycle and the speed to value to clinicians and to patients a little faster. So I think those are really hard to regulate areas, right? Like legal, contracting, and security. And every institution's got their own level and flavor of risk. But I think that there's kind of a need for similar working groups. It's like, okay, we're starting to nail the technical specifications. Let's branch out and like figure out what other friction barriers we have to like truly making the data liquid and making it usable.
Absolutely. Yeah, I if I had a crystal ball, I would say the non-technical challenges are definitely going to outweigh the technical challenges when it comes to getting this thing fully implemented.